The Brown family of Alaskan bush people has faced many challenges in the wilderness, but none quite as devastating as what Joshua Bam Bam Brown now faces. The second oldest son of the famous family has been sentenced, and the implications will last forever. Joshua Brown from Alaskan bush people now faces a reality many fans never saw coming as court documents reveal his fate. We dive into how things got so bad for the wilderness-dwelling Brown family member and why this sentencing could mean saying goodbye forever to the life he once knew. A family's wild legacy. Long before legal documents and courtroom appearances, Joshua Bam Bam Brown's world was measured by the wilderness surrounding him. As the second son of Billy and Amy Brown, Joshua grew up learning survival skills most children would never encounter. While other kids worried about homework and video games, Joshua mastered building shelters and tracking wildlife across Alaska's rugged terrain. The Brown family lived off the grid in the Alaskan wilderness for decades, creating their unique way of. Billy Brown, the family patriarch, believed in freedom above all else. He believed that people should be free from the restrictions of society, including bills and bureaucracy, and that they should be allowed to live by their own rules. This philosophy shaped Joshua from an early age and gave him an independent spirit. When the Discovery Channel found the Browns in 2014, the producers expected to document a simple wilderness survival story, but instead they captured something more compelling: a family united by love and determination battling against the harshest elements of nature. Joshua quickly became a fan favorite, known for his level-headed approach to challenges and his unwavering loyalty to family, unlike his more impetuous brothers. His thoughtful nature won him over viewers who saw the perfect balance of bush wisdom and emotional intelligence in him. Anticipated their private struggles became public entertainment. Their mistakes, both innocent and serious, faced scrutiny from millions, and somewhere between the camera-ready adventures and the hard reality of surviving in the wilderness, lines began to blur between the life they lived and the life they portrayed. Trouble on the horizon. For years the Brown family had benefited from Alaska's Permanent Fund Dividend Program, which distributes a portion of the state's oil revenue to qualifying residents. To receive these payments, applicants must live in Alaska year-round and maintain permanent residency. As the Alaskan bush people gained popularity, questions about the family's actual whereabouts during filming began to surface. Sharp-eyed viewers noticed inconsistencies in the show's timeline. Social media posts placed family members outside Alaska during periods when they claimed residency, while the Browns described themselves as nomadic bush people moving their camps through Alaska's wilderness. State investigators started building a different narrative, one that suggested the family spent significant time in the lower 48 states while continuing to collect Alaska's oil dividends. The investigation intensified when officials examined travel records, credit card statements, and witness testimonies. Documents revealed that between 2009 and 2012, the period under scrutiny, multiple Brown family members had spent more than 180 days per year outside Alaska, disqualifying them from receiving the dividend payments they'd continued to collect. Joshua's involvement became particularly problematic. As an adult filing his dividend applications, he had personally certified his continuous Alaskan residency. Each form carried warnings about the penalties for false statements. Each signature represented a legal commitment to the truth of his claims, and according to investigators, each application contained information that simply didn't match reality. The family initially dismissed the allegations as misunderstandings. Billy Brown insisted they had always considered Alaska their home. Regardless of temporary travels, Joshua echoed his father's defense, arguing that their nomadic lifestyle made traditional concepts of residency difficult to apply to their situation. But as evidence mounted, the legal ground beneath them began to shift. The investigation deepens. Routine questions about paperwork quickly evolved into a full-scale fraud investigation. Alaska state troopers combed through years of records, interviewed witnesses, and precisely tracked the Browns' movements. The investigation revealed a pattern prosecutors found deeply troubling. The family had collectively received more than $20,000 in dividend payments during years when they didn't qualify for Joshua Brown specifically. The focus narrowed to approximately $8,000 in payments received over 4 years. While this might seem a relatively small sum compared to the family's television earnings, state prosecutors viewed the case as a matter of principle. Alaska's dividend program operates on an honor system, with residents trusted to report their eligibility truthfully. Violations undermine public trust and divert funds from legitimate Recipients. The family's growing fame complicated matters further as the Alaskan bush people gained viewership. Footage from the show became potential evidence. Episodes filmed in Washington, Oregon and other states directly contradicted residency claims filed during the same periods. The documentary series, meant to celebrate their wilderness lifestyle, had inadvertently created a paper trail that authorities could follow. Joshua found himself in a particularly difficult position. Unlike some of his younger siblings who could argue they were following their parents' lead, he was an adult making independent legal declarations. His signature appeared on multiple applications containing what investigators now characterized as false statements. As the investigation intensified, Joshua's options narrowed. The evidence against him grew more substantial with each passing week. State prosecutors prepared charges of falsification and theft, serious allegations that carried potential jail time for a family that prided itself on living honorably. The prospect of criminal charges represented more than just legal jeopardy. It threatened the core identity they had built both on and off camera. Day in court. The Juneau courthouse starkly contrasted with the wilderness freedom Joshua Brown had known his entire life. Polished marble floors replaced forest undergrowth, fluorescent lights substituted for starlight. On that pivotal morning in 2016, Joshua entered wearing what appeared to be his first ever formal suit, the collar visibly uncomfortable against his weather-beaten neck. Billy Brown walked beside him, both men uncharacteristically silent as cameras clicked around them. The father and son who had faced bears, blizzards and isolation now confronted a different kind of wilderness. The Alaskan legal system. The judge presided over proceedings with a steady gaze that seemed to cut through the television mythology surrounding the Browns. The courtroom fell silent as prosecutors outlined their case, deliberately falsifying residency documents to obtain state benefits illegally. These defendants didn't make simple mistakes. The prosecutor stated they systematically claimed Alaska residency while living elsewhere, taking money meant for genuine residents struggling with the high costs of northern life. Joshua's attorney argued for leniency, emphasizing his client's limited formal education and dependence on his father's guidance. Mr. Brown was raised in isolation, taught to trust family above all else. When his father directed him to sign those documents, he did so without fully understanding the legal implications. This defense strategy subtly shifted blame toward Billy, creating tension between father and son as they sat at the defendant's table. During cross-examination, Joshua maintained remarkable composure when asked why he signed the residency forms despite extended absences from Alaska. He responded, "My father taught me that home isn't just where you sleep, it's where your heart lives. Alaska has always been our true home, even when circumstances forced us elsewhere." While emotionally compelling, the answer did little to address the legal standards for residency. The judge's expression remained unmoved. The pivotal moment came when prosecutors displayed Joshua's signature on multiple dividend applications alongside time-stamped photographs showing him in Washington state and California during periods when he certified being in Alaska. The evidence formed an insurmountable contradiction to the wilderness narrative that had defined his public identity. As the final exhibit was entered into evidence, Joshua closed his eyes briefly, shoulders slumping under the weight of what was coming. The verdict would soon follow, carrying consequences far beyond the immediate legal penalties. The sentence falls. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver his verdict. The prosecution and defense had presented their final arguments, and now the moment of judgment had arrived for Joshua Bam Bam Brown, standing beside his father Billy at the defendant's table. This moment represented the culmination of a lengthy investigation that had exposed details of the Brown family's lives to public scrutiny. The judge began by summarizing the charges: falsification of application for permanent fund dividends and unsworn falsification in the second degree. The evidence presented was substantial travel records showing extended periods outside Alaska, financial transactions in the lower 48 states, and testimony from individuals who had seen the Browns far from their purported Alaskan residence during periods when they claimed to be living in the state. The court finds the evidence compelling and conclusive, the judge stated, his voice carrying through the hushed room. The defendants knowingly submitted applications containing false information regarding their residency status and on that basis received funds to which they were not entitled under Alaska state law. With these words, Joshua Brown was officially found guilty. The reality TV star who had built his reputation on wilderness authenticity now stood convicted of defrauding the state he claimed to call home. The irony wasn't lost on observers in the courtroom, several of whom later described the moment to reporters as profoundly uncomfortable. The judge then moved to sentencing, articulating each component with deliberate clarity. First came the jail time, 30 days to be served in full without option for early release or home confinement for someone who had spent his life roaming freely across Alaska's vast wilderness. The prospect of confinement within concrete walls represented a punishment beyond just inconvenience. It meant separation from the natural world that had shaped his identity. Since childhood, the court recognizes that incarceration may be particularly challenging for individuals accustomed to an unconventional lifestyle. The judge noted, however, the integrity of the permanent fund dividend program requires meaningful consequences for deliberate violations. Next came financial penalties. Joshua would need to repay the approximately $8,000 received in improper dividend payments plus additional fines and court costs. Court documents later revealed that the total financial obligation exceeded $10,000 when all penalties were included. These sums represented significant hardship for a family that had often lived hand-to-mouth before television fame more than the monetary value. However, the repayment carried symbolic weight, an official declaration that those funds had never rightfully belonged to them. Some longtime Alaska residents in attendance nodded approval at this portion of the sentence. The permanent fund dividend represents a shared resource many Alaskans depend upon for essential needs. Diverting these funds through false claims isn't viewed as a victimless crime, but as theft from the community itself. The judge also ordered 40 hours of community service to be completed within 6 months of release. This component aimed at rehabilitation rather than punishment, offering Joshua a chance to contribute positively to the same community he had wronged through his false claims. Court records indicate this service would need to be performed in Alaska, requiring Joshua to return to the state after his release. Community service provides an opportunity to make amends beyond mere financial restitution. The judge explained it's a tangible way to give back to the Alaskan community. However, the most lasting element of the sentence came when the judge addressed future eligibility, permanent ineligibility for future dividend payments. With these words, Joshua Brown was effectively sentenced forever to exclusion from a program representing all Alaskans' shared heritage. Long after the jail time ended and the fines were paid, this prohibition would remain a perpetual reminder of past mistakes. Legal experts later explained the significance of this permanent ban. While most penalties in the justice system have definite end points, jail terms conclude, probation periods expire, even most financial obligations eventually get fulfilled. This aspect of Joshua's sentence would follow him for life, no matter how many years he might spend as a law-abiding resident of Alaska. This door had closed permanently. The Anchorage Daily News later reported that such permanent bans are relatively rare, typically reserved for cases involving particularly egregious violations or repeat offenders. The judge's decision to impose this penalty on Joshua suggested he viewed the offense with special seriousness, perhaps influenced by the Browns' public profile or the extended period over which the violations occurred. As Joshua stood to hear this judgment, cameras captured a fleeting expression crossing his face, not anger or defiance but something closer to resignation. The rugged man who had faced down blizzards and bears now confronted a different kind of wilderness, a future permanently altered by choices he couldn't unmake. Court officers prepared to take Joshua and Billy into custody to begin serving their sentences immediately. Before leaving the courtroom, Joshua was permitted to speak with family members briefly. Observers noted he exchanged quiet words with his mother Amy, whose expression remained stoic throughout the proceedings. Whatever passed between them remained private, one of the few moments in the Browns' lives not captured for public consumption. As Joshua was handcuffed in the courtroom, the reality of his situation appeared to fully register the freedom he had cherished. Above all else was suspended. An official decree fundamentally altered his relationship with Alaska. The place central to his identity. The sentence handed down was more than just punishment, it redefined his place in the world he thought he knew. Family under pressure. The ripple effects of Joshua's sentence spread far beyond his immediate experience, touching every aspect of the Brown family dynamic. With Billy and Joshua temporarily removed from their roles as decision-makers and providers, responsibilities shifted dramatically across the remaining family members. What had begun as a legal matter for Joshua Brown from Alaskan bush people quickly transformed into a family-wide crisis that tested their famous resilience in ways the wilderness never had. At Browntown, their self-built wilderness compound, practical challenges mounted immediately. Projects that would normally have benefited from Joshua's mechanical aptitude and problem-solving skills languished. Half completed. The family's boat, critical for transportation and fishing in the isolated region, developed engine troubles that nobody else could diagnose with Joshua's precision. Even routine maintenance tasks became complicated without his guidance. The generator that powered their modest electrical needs faltered repeatedly, causing nights when temperatures dropped dangerously low. Bear attempted repairs but lacked his brother's systematic approach to mechanical problems. Noah's creative solutions proved inconsistent, sometimes brilliant but often impractical for immediate needs. The emotional toll proved equally significant among his siblings. Joshua had long served as a stabilizing force, less impulsive than Bear, more present than Matt, more pragmatic than Noah. His absence created a void that nobody could quite fill. Family friends reported increased tension as remaining siblings attempted to recalibrate their roles and relationships in this new reality. Bird took on additional cooking responsibilities but struggled to feed hungry workers without Joshua's hunting contributions. Gabe tried stepping into the leadership void but found himself second-guessing decisions his brother would have made confidently. The family's characteristic harmony, central to their public image, showed visible strain during this period for Amy Brown. The situation brought particular hardship. Already battling health concerns that would later be revealed as serious, she now faced the knowledge that both her husband and son were experiencing confinement, something the family had specifically structured their entire lives to avoid. Yet characteristically, she projected calm resolve, focusing on maintaining family unity through the crisis. When cameras weren't rolling, however, those close to the family noticed her increasingly gaunt appearance and the worried glances she cast toward Billy. When discussion turned to Joshua's situation, the matriarch, who had weathered Alaskan blizzards, faced a storm of a different nature, one that threatened the foundation of the life she and Billy had built. The younger Brown siblings, particularly Rain and Snowbird, struggled to process the situation. Having grown up on camera, they had limited experience with public scrutiny turning negative. Rain temporarily suspended her social media accounts after receiving harsh comments about her brother's legal troubles. Snowbird retreated further into nature, spending long days tracking animals and avoiding human contact. The family's carefully constructed buffer between themselves and mainstream society had been breached, and the youngest Browns faced the harshest adjustment to this new reality, where their family name carried complicated associations. Financial pressures intensified as well. Legal expenses had already drained resources before sentencing, with two key family members unable to contribute to income-generating activities, whether for the television show or their subsistence lifestyle. Economic uncertainty loomed. The production schedule for Alaskan bush people faced disruption, potentially threatening the platform that had brought them financial stability. Producers scrambled to rework storylines, sometimes filming segments that did not refer to Joshua's absence, creating a narrative disconnect that observant viewers quickly noticed. Billy's attorney fees and Joshua's legal expenses created a financial burden the family had never anticipated when signing their television contract. Discovery Channel executives found themselves navigating unfamiliar territory. The network had built its relationship with the Browns on their authentic wilderness lifestyle and family values. Criminal sentences, however brief, complicated this narrative. Would viewers continue to embrace the family's adventures knowing this background? Would sponsors remain comfortable with their association? These questions hung in the air unanswered. Once a security source, the family's land holdings became another pressure point. Property taxes came due during Joshua's incarceration, creating cash flow challenges. Without his contribution, the Browns had always pulled resources, operating more as a clan than as individual financial entities. Joshua's absence from this economic ecosystem created an imbalance that threatened their collective stability. Bear proposed selling timber from their land to cover immediate expenses, but such logging required equipment that Joshua typically maintained. Noah suggested developing craft items for tourist sales, but production remained inconsistent without Joshua's practical guidance. Even the Browns' carefully maintained privacy suffered as a result of Joshua's sentencing. Although the family had chosen to live in seclusion to avoid such scrutiny, Bam Bam had frequently been the family's ambassador to the outside world. Locals who had previously respected their boundaries now felt entitled to ask intrusive questions about the family's legal troubles. Some even brought cameras to the edges of Brown's property in the hopes of capturing marketable images of the distressed family.